And that's basically how they got the rest of the money for Snow White. As far as your question about some of the things that are seeping into the films and stuff, I don't think it's something that they can catch everything that comes out. And Disney always does the best they can to police everything and to make sure that there's nothing in a film or in an animated feature that's going to be offensive or kind of cross a line. But again, certain things that do happen to make it into a film are usually something you might see in an effect or something like that. So they can't really catch everything that comes out.
So I want to make sure that me and him are both understanding and clear. You're meaning like, I can't even remember what it supposedly said, but like how in the clouds and like Lion King there was... What? The Rescuers Down Under?
Oh, the Rescuers Down Under. So like I said, in doing stuff, like you said, how it was a quick go by. And in Rescuers Down Under, you have to understand is that that's one of the first films to where Disney was using the CAPS program, which was the first time that that was the beginning stages of computer animation. So a lot of the buildings and things in there were done with computer, and as they were going through, anytime an animated feature is done, it's not one person. It's usually a team of people that are doing it. So if somebody is going ahead and they're assigned to a specific thing, like they're assigned maybe, like with Mulan. I don't know if you guys were aware of this, but when they did Mulan, they had designed all the characters. In Mushu, actually, they didn't have a size for him. Like they didn't know how big or how small he was going to be, so they had to decide the size on him before they started drawing it. So when you get into these teams, they're given a certain responsibility, and I believe that Disney trusts them to do exactly what they're supposed to do. And most people are very happy to work for Disney and do their job, but I just like with any
bad
company,
apples, I think, is what he's trying
like
to say.
anytime you get into a company, there's going to be somebody trying to sneak things in and things like that. And a lot of times, when they do that, it's very minute. So sometimes it just kind of gets kind of snuck by. And Disney does their best to go in, and if something like that does sneak by, they'll go in and change it or try and take it out. So
yeah, Disney as a whole doesn't play that. Like,
yeah, no,
they took Star Wars blank comics. They won't even do them anymore because of what some artists were doing on the sketch covers with Princess Leia. They were like, you know what? You're going to draw her like that? We're not even going to make the comics anymore.
Right.
So, I mean, if they knew, I don't believe Disney was like, you know what, let's subliminal message some kids. If an animator did that, that was like a lone wolf thing that he thought he was going to get one by people, and he's probably at his buddy's house going, look what I snuck in the...
I'm sure you heard about the Little Mermaid poster thing, and that, I think that was more open to interpretation, but at the same time, Disney did go in and change that, and they made sure it was changed. The other thing to realize is that these animators that are doing stuff are working incredible hours. And it's not that when you're given an assignment, when you're given an animation assignment, they go ahead and they give it to you and say, you're on this is your assignment, it needs to be done by such and such a date. I remember when they had the feature film animation department in Florida, I was there. I was in the animation gallery, I had worked there, and a lot of the animators were there 11, 12 o'clock at night, still working on stuff that they had to get done because they had a deadline to meet. And most of them were very happy to be there, but probably I would say until Mermaid came out, and even a little after that, that was kind of anything before that was Disney trying to get their momentum back, from like Sleeping Beauty and a lot of the 101 Dalmatians, a lot of those types of films. Black Cauldron was something that, didn't do real well in the box office, but has a cult following now. So they really had to get their feet back under them from that point of about the mid 80s all the way until probably, I would say, like the early 90s, even though Mermaid came out in 89. Just trying to make sure that they were producing amazing stuff, because a lot of the animators also, when Michael Eisner came in, they brought in Jeffrey Katzenberg. When Jeffrey Katzenberg was brought in, he didn't know anything about animation. Michael Eisner was like, hey, you see that building over there? We're going to give you that building. They literally kicked the animators out of their building because the animation department was doing that bad. And then when Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, and we started getting into that era, they built the new animation facility in California for the animators because it was doing incredible at that time. And it just, again, took them getting their feet under them and things like that. But there's so much going on. And then Roy Disney had committed, not Walt's brother, but his nephew, had committed to doing an animated feature every year. And you have to understand is that had to be set up in a rotation, because even at that time, it's taken a couple years to get an animated feature done, and especially at the quality that they wanted it at. So that's a tremendous amount of work. So naturally, just like with anybody, nobody's perfect. Every once in a while, something's going to slip by, but Disney always does their very best to make sure that if anything like that happens, it's corrected and taken care of.
That's a fantastic question. We have another question.
That was a hard question.
Okay, so this gentleman's question was for Peter. He said, out of all the projects that you've done, what was your overall favorite project?
Okay, so I actually went to the Columbus College of Art and Design. I was trained as an illustrator animator. I've worked in the animation department, but honestly, probably the most fun that I've had has been doing the Disney covers that I've been getting to do lately. I kind of get to pick and choose which ones to do, and Disney has been very easy to work. They've been awesome to work with anytime I submit something in. But obviously, too, I have an idea of what they would like and what they wouldn't like. But the covers, doing Gargoyles was awesome. I'm watching the animated series as I'm drawing Gargoyles. I think the funniest thing with doing Gargoyles is, like the question that you had asked before, Disney was very specific. We don't want guns in it. We don't want this in it. We don't want that in it. And as soon as I start playing Gargoyles, everybody's shooting each other with laser rifles. And it's like, okay, let me just do this the way it is. And so
that's crazy. I don't want to interrupt you, but it's kind of crazy because in the Gargoyles TV show, when it first came out, like one of the first things that they did was fight a drug dealer.
Yes. But none of that is, was looked at as to now. So I think you're going to see. Oh, go ahead. Did you have a question? Okay.
He said, as far as innovation goes, do you see animation evolving into something else as years go?
Okay, I actually don't. I think animation is always going to be stylized, but I think not only Disney, but other companies are well aware of animation being its own art form. So animation is very similar to comics in the sense that I think that you're always going to have a styling to animation. Like with any feature that you look at, if you go back and look at Hercules, a lot of the early concept work for Hercules, they tried to capture this Greek and Roman angular stylization to the characters, and some of that did carry over into the final as well. But I think every feature is going to be stylized in its own way, but I don't think that you're ever going to have animation really evolve into anything other than animation. I feel like if it gets too much more on a realistic level, you might as well just make a movie. And so I think animation as far as art goes. Even when John Lasseter came in, and John Lasseter was obviously responsible for Pixar, and we'll talk some more about John, but believe it or not, everybody knows John Lasseter from Pixar. The funny thing is, John Lasseter was a Disney animator back in the 80s. And he had then gone to Lucasfilm for Pixar. The CAPS program that Disney ended up using in the late 90s was actually from Pixar. So John Lasseter was on the development team for that, and they used it more in Beauty and the Beast. But he was on the developmental team for that. And so even though John wasn't working for Disney at that time, he was still very much involved, you know, like kind of doing things in there. But I don't think that you're going to see animation evolve. You'll see the computer doing different things. I think you're going to see different styles of animation come out, but I don't look at it as evolving into something other than animation. I think you're just going to see some different styles and stuff.
I have a follow-up for this. Don't let me forget that I've got something to ask you about this whole evolution of animation thing.
Okay.
What's your second question? Is it possible for animation to be 3D?
Yes, and I believe now with them doing holograms and stuff like that, if they wanted to, they could definitely render characters three-dimensionally. If you can make Michael Jackson three-dimensional, we can make Mickey Mouse three-dimensional. You know, there's no doubt about that. You may see animated characters become 3D if that's what you were meaning by evolution of animation. But
do you mean like 3D movies, like how it comes out?
Oh, 3D like that. I'm sure they could do that.
Well, yeah, because most of all that, like, if you watch Piranhas 3D, the piranhas are CGI'd, just like how you would do animation. So I'm sure it's highly possible that you could...
it's possible to do it. I just don't know how relevant it would be, because in animation, like I said, especially now with the computer being involved, animation is very much like comic books. You can almost do anything. So as far as 3D effects and things, I think everything comes in phases. So if you remember when Tim Burton did Alice in Wonderland, it came out in 3D. And when they did that 3D, I had a headache by the time I left, honestly. So I think it kind of ran its course, and now we'll come back. But it wouldn't surprise me if Disney licensed a game to do something like Oculus or something along those lines, to where you could actually go into a virtual reality and play with the characters. Kingdom Hearts might be something that would be good for that. Whether they're going to do that or not, I don't know, but definitely, if you guys are listening out there, anybody from Disney's listening, Kingdom Hearts 3D might be a good thing. So, but
if somebody from Disney's listening to me,
you could listen. It happens.
Hey, listen, I do like you guys overall. Like, I might gripe about some of the stuff that's going on here lately, but listen, overall, I'm still a fan of Disney. My little boy's favorite movie in the entire universe is the Goofy movie.
So yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
So I think that there is or has already been a step in the evolution of animation, and you might not even be aware of this. You can literally, and I'm not asking you to agree or whether you think this is a good idea or not. It's happening, and I can show you videos later on how good it is. But you can make your own animation with AI, and like how these guys are over here in the Mando outfits and stuff, right? We can get them over here and have them act out a scene in their outfits, and then we can load it into the AI and turn them into cartoons. Everything from the background to everything. We can make windows blow out and explode just like they do in animation. So to me, there has already been an evolution step in the animation process, because now you do not even have to go and physically animate. You can,
well, and you have that. Have any of you guys seen Clone Wars, the last season of Clone Wars? So the thing you have to understand is, with animation technology as a whole, video games, films, and animation all share that technology. So somebody might develop something for CGI for a film. what CGI stands for? Computer generated imaging. So anybody working on CGI is actually an animator. What happens is the mocap suits they were using for video games, Dave Filoni and his team, when they were doing season 7, they had brought in Ray Park for Clone Wars season 7. They dressed him, and there was another girl who played the part of Ahsoka. He played Darth Maul, and the other girl had played the part of Ahsoka. The characters were, so anytime you do computer generated animation like Toy Story or a Pixar type animation, you have to do a character and a rigging for the character, which means a computer is rigged to that character so that it can move and have motion. The characters were rigged to their mocap suits, and they were able to take cameras and they filmed them in real time.
Do you guys know what that suit is he's talking about?
So it has the dots and stuff on it. So you can actually watch a video if you type in Darth Maul fighting Ahsoka, Clone Wars season 7 mocap, and it will come up. And you can see that to where they can animate them in real time. Animators still have to go in and tweak the movement and kind of adjust certain things to make it a little bit more dynamic and things like that. But yeah, definitely they're able to put all that together. So,
does that answer your questions? Do you feel satisfied? Thank you for coming. Anybody else have a question for Peter regarding the 100 years of Disney animation?
What'd you say?
He is one of the animators. Yeah.
Have I ever met who? Glenn Keane. No, I have not met Glenn Keane. I have met Aaron Blaze. One of my friends, when I had worked at the animation gallery down at Disney MGM Studios when the animation department was in Florida. And I've met Philo Barnhart, who helped with some of the design work on Ariel for Little Mermaid. And he's an awesome, beautiful man if you ever get to meet him. But Glenn Keane, nothing but respect for that man. That man is amazing. Max Howard, I've met Max Howard. Different people like that, yeah. So,
are all of you guys out there familiar with who Peter Smith is and what he does? Tell them exactly what your job title is now.
Okay, so I'm Peter Smith. I'm an illustrator. I do some advising here and there with Disney. I worked back in the day. I started as a cast member in 1990 at Disney MGM Studios. I worked in the animation department when the feature film department was there in a place called the Animation Gallery. We had the animation tour, and then we had the animation department on the floor. And so was definitely able to kind of go down, saw what they were working on, got to ask a lot of questions, got taught to draw before I went to college by some of the animators that had worked there, which was unbelievably cool. I ended up going to the Columbus College of Art and Design. My goal was, when I originally went to Disney, I went to Disney World in Florida from Ohio, and I wanted to be an animator. And I grew up in the hood. Like, if you look up Youngstown, Ohio, it is not a nice place to live. And that's where I grew up. So I went from the hood to this fairy tale world, to where I walked in to the casting building of Disney. They have these gold statues up around the top, and fairy tales, cartoon characters all painted. And when I went in, I was very naive about how the process worked. And I went in and I had a portfolio with me, and I went up to the casting pavilion, filled out an application, and they interviewed me. And I ended up telling them that I wanted to be an animator, find out what I needed to do to be an animator. And they said, well, unfortunately, this is how it works. You have to submit in, you have to do this. Because the animation department was in Florida at the time. Well, one of the animation departments was there. And I ended up going ahead and getting hired. And they're like, well, we can't get you an animation, but do you want a job? And we'll put you over in the studios. And the studios had just opened, like Disney MGM. So I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm not doing anything for the summer. Well, I ended up staying longer. And Disney's usual rate of transfer is like 6 months to a year. I went and talked to one of the supervisors over for the animation gallery, and they transferred me into animation within 2 weeks. And that was unheard of. In fact, I'll never forget, I went in, my first job at Disney was issuing strollers. And I was at Oscar's gas station, and what was really funny is that my wife, who also works for Disney, ended up going and working at Oscar's gas station like 3 years ago, and she goes, great. I'm like been here for 2 years, and now I have a job where you started. This is fantastic. So anyway, being in the animation department and going ahead there was, I had worked other places around the parks and things, but having been there just fueled my passion for going. And I remember Cal Arts is the creme de la creme art college for Disney. It's like top of the line. It's the best school as far as Disney goes you can go to. At that time, most of the people that had come in as far as animators, they were either from Ringling College of Art and Design, which is in Sarasota, Florida, or Columbus College of Art and Design, which was in Ohio. Well, I was originally from Ohio. So I had animators going, you need to go to Ringling, and you can come up on the weekends and, you know, work and this and that. And then I had other animators going, you should go to CCAD, go to Columbus, and go to school there. So I went and toured Ringling, and I don't have an affinity for snakes. And I remember going to Ringling, and there was probably about a 3-foot snake that was slithering along the basketball court, and I'm like, Ohio it is. That's where I'm going.
You know, you don't strike me as a guy that, you know, in West Philadelphia, born and raised on the playground.
Did you have another question, sir? I saw you had your...
Yes. I don't think so, because I think you need to understand is that when Disney does a feature, they have a formula, okay? There's all formulas. Like, do you want to know why the Fantastic Four movies that you've seen recently don't do well? Because they're not following the formula. The formula of that comic had come out, and you need to follow the formula for that. I think they follow a formula that was developed by Walt, and they follow that formula to this day. So I don't feel the hero's journey is a bad thing. I feel that it's a very strong concept to tell a story. And if you go in and look at a lot of, like, one of my favorite stories that they've told, and it's based on a comic book, was Big Hero 6. Big Hero 6 was a phenomenal story. But I think another thing that comes into play, and you have Ollie and Frank, 2 of the 9 old men, to thank for that, is the characterization. They also base stuff off a lot of things that those 2 guys did as far as a character animation and their motions and their personalities. And I think because you may look at the hero's journey concept, we're still getting variations on that. Even though they have kind of a formula they do stick to, I feel Disney stories are always varied. Look at Princess and the Frog. Princess and the Frog is gorgeous. As far as it was the last 2D animation that we actually saw feature film-wise, Princess and the Frog is a beautiful piece of animation. I remember watching Tiana's mom go home on the bus, and those animators in the windows of that bus, if you pay attention to the reflection, those reflections change from the big houses of the rich area that Tiana's mom was in to going back to basically the poor area to where Tiana and her family lived. And you get to see that. Another scene that was amazingly done was when Tiana was carrying all the plates out of the kitchen. Just her motion and the way they captured it and everything like that. Shadow Man, oh my gosh, Dr. Facilier, great villain. And I think that's what varies Disney's stories as far as animation goes. You get a lot of these, you may have a hero's journey formula underneath everything, but you still have these layered characters that are fantastic, and they're magical, and they have personality. And not only do kids love them, adults love them. And like
Hercules, you mentioned it earlier.
Yeah.
I'll lab-lib this in here. That's so underrated to me.
Oh, it's very
Hades is freaking amazing.
Hades is
as a
amazing.
Disney
Hades,
villain.
James
Why
Woods
have we
is
not
Hades.
done a Hades cover yet for Gabe's Cave?
Because I was going to San Diego and I didn't have time to do Hades. So
In case you guys did not know, he has got a ton of Disney covers over there that he has done for Disney books, and the majority of them have all been Gabe's Caves and Crumb World in Florida's exclusive
Exclusives, yeah.
covers. So, yeah, give you a little background on Gabe's Cave. We ain't just a YouTube channel.
in fact, if you guys come back later, one of the covers that we're going to be giving you a little sneak peek of is that Disney has already gone ahead and approved the sketch for Cruella de Vil, which will be coming out in December. And we got a sneak peek for you guys this weekend of that cover. Since they've announced it now, we can go ahead and give you guys a little peek of what the cover is going to look like that I did. So if you guys want to come back and check that out after, you're more than welcome to come by a table, and I will be happy to show that to you.
It is everything you want in a classic Cruella de Vil cover on a comic book. It's everything, all the way down to the background that he put on there. It's fantastic.
Also, I'll tell you this. I think as far as Disney, I feel like our leadership, you need to understand is that Bob Iger is amazing. He is awesome. He not only takes care and understands that he's working for a creative company and that the characters and the creations are what that company is based on. He also cares deeply about the people that work there. And he goes to great lengths to make sure that those people are taken care of, and that he always is. There's always something special going on for cast members down there. Always.
I like Bob.
Yeah, Bob's awesome. Like, if Bob could just stay there forever, that would be good. But I think you guys know the new animated features coming out as Wish. The preview for that is online. And to answer your question, like earlier, what you were talking about, the hero's journey, I think we're going to have that hero journey storyline, but at the same time, for the 100 years, the animation department had to come up with a concept of what was going to be done for the 100 years, what was going to happen with that, and they are actually going to go ahead and base that on the wishing star. And so that's amazing, and I believe there's a short in front of it that is going to be almost kind of Roger Rabbit-like, and there's a preview out for that as well that is supposed to encompass everything over the past 100 years that Disney has worked on animation-wise will be included in this short. And there's a little preview of it, and it looks like part of it actually takes place on the studio lot out in California. And actually, I was just there a couple months ago, and so it was amazing to kind of see that and be like, oh my gosh, I was just there. And it was cool to see. Anybody else have a question? Or did I answer your question? Oh, I didn't finish telling you the story. So anyway, I had gone ahead and I decided, it's kind of sad, but my father and my uncle had passed away within 6 months of each other. And as much as I loved being at Disney in Florida, it was kind of like a wake-up call. If I'm gonna be an artist, if I'm gonna go ahead and do this, then I need to go to school. And it was hard. It was hard to leave because a lot of people don't realize is that when you start working there, even in the parks or whatever, you become part of like this family and this lifestyle, and it was very difficult to go ahead and go. And then I went up to Columbus. I ended up going to school. I got a scholarship. I got accepted in. one of the really cool things was because Disney always wanted you to draw, and like I said, I got to learn some tricks from the animators and stuff. So when I went in, I could draw. I was good at drawing. So I had my sophomore review, and one of my professors said something about my painting, and one of my other professors had me in class. They're like, yes, his painting might be 6-ish, but his drawing skills are at an 11. And I was like, oh. And so it was funny because my professor pulled me out after. He goes, just remember, you draw better than me, but I paint better than you, so don't let it go to your head. So, at CCAD, another thing that they had me do was comic book work. They felt because of my drawing ability, I would be really good at doing comics and that type of, that type of genre and stuff like that. So there's a movie, came out in 1995. It was a sad day for me and a happy day at the same time. Toy Story came out. And that was kind of where feature film was changing. In fact, a lot of people don't realize this, but nobody knew what to expect. Now, John Lasseter had worked with Disney on them putting this together, but it was Pixar, and it was them going ahead and doing it.
Toy Story blew my mind.
Yeah, Toy Story, nobody expected it. In fact, I don't even think that Disney expected it, because the one thing Toy Story didn't have when it premiered were toys. There was no heavy merchandising out for Toy Story at all. So there was a mad rush to get things on the shelves. And so they did end up going ahead and getting that. And then obviously we had A Bug's Life. And I remember I was still in college, and Disney would come up every year because CCAD, where I went to school, is one of their partner schools. And to where they come up and they take interns and things like that from. So they came in and they showed us what they were working on. We're working on this, and it looks fantastic. And it did. I think it was Hunchback of Notre Dame at that time. And they said, and this is what Pixar's doing. And they said, and we just let them kind of do their own thing. This is what the rep was telling us. We just kind of let them do their own thing. So we'll just cut to their trailer of what they're doing. Guy came on dressed in a hat with a bug net over him and a butterfly catching net, and started talking about bugs, and this is what they were doing. And I remember getting to visit Pixar Studios in the late 90s, and amazing place. And they had this giant room, and as you're going through and you're seeing everything, it was a giant room filled with hard drives. And I'm like, what's this? And they're like, oh, that's our rendering room. I said, rendering? They said, this is where we render. All the characters are rendered from here. All these hard drives are rendering the characters. So I was like, holy cow, it's amazing. But anyway, they eventually ended up going ahead. Michael Eisner had to make a decision and kind of felt like 2D animation was not going to do it. And then I think Pixar they hadn't really left Disney, but they had a contract with Disney, and they weren't going to renew or something along those lines, and then Disney ended up buying them instead. But when they did that, they had closed the animation department in Florida. I didn't go in and contact anybody about doing the internship animation-wise because I didn't want to go out to California. I'm sorry, California. I do love you guys very much, but I just... my family and everything were here. My friends were here.
You alone on that one.
Oh, you want to go to California?
No, you're alone on that one. Your love for California, you're alone on that one.
Oh, see, California's great. California's great. So what I ended up doing is I went in, and to make a long story short, my advising office told me they said, why don't you internship for a comic book company? Why don't you intern for a comic book company? And I'm like, all right, yeah, I'll intern for a comic book company. Let me see. You know what? Let me find out who's doing internships. Well, the office told me nobody was doing internship. Do you guys remember the magazine called Wizard? You guys remember that? So it came out, literally, I'm not even kidding you. It came out the next day. And my friend calls me and goes, there's a list of all these companies that are doing internships for comic book artists and writers. And I'm like, you're kidding. So Marvel was there. And I'm like, okay. So I went back into the office. I said, I'm going to apply for Marvel Comics. They have this internship. And I wanted to make sure it counted towards my degree and whatnot. And so they said, okay, yeah. So there was stuff the college had to send in and then stuff I had to send in. And I didn't realize, and this was in 1999, and I had applied for this internship for going over the summer. And so I think it's like May, and episode 1 was getting ready to come out. And I'm sorry for this, Marvel, but they ended up going ahead, and I was getting ready to go break for summer, and I was going down to Disney, so I wasn't going to be home, and they weren't going to be able to get a hold of me. So I called Marvel, and I said, just to let you know, I'm going to be down at Disney. You're not going to be able to get a hold of me, but if you need to get a hold of me, you can call my grandmother, who my grandmother was like my mom. She was amazing. I like my mom too, but my grandmother was, you know, it's your grandmother. So, but they went ahead and they said, well, hold on. We were going to call you for an interview. This is all like just randomly happening. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I can hold. So they have this guy, Dan Carr, who was the head of our bullpen department, which was the art department at Marvel. And then they had Raphael. Well, I'll never forget Raphael. And I don't know if he was Jamaican or what he was, but he had this really cool accent. He's like, I am Raphael. And, you know, it was awesome. And so they were looking at comic book pages that I had sent in. And so they ended up saying, you draw really, really well. So they asked me other questions. And my last question was, so I'm sitting here answering all these serious questions, like what computer programs are you proficient in? Oh, well, Photoshop and Illustrator, and okay. And, you know, what hours for this, and what do you do for that? And you know, just regular questions you would have for a job interview. So I'm like, okay. And the last question was, who do you think would win in a fight, Thor or the Hulk? So I'm like, I like the Hulk, but Thor's a god, so I think Thor's coming out on top in the end. And they're like, you're hired, you got it. So
they need to go back to asking those kinds of questions at Marvel.
So I ended up, they said, when can you get up here? When can you start? Because I was in the middle of finals. Like, well, my midterm, I was going to come back, take my finals, and then we were done for the semester. And I said, well, I can be there the day after. I didn't tell them this. I just told them the date. It was the day after episode 1, premiered in the theater because we had tickets to go.
Which also blew my mind.
Yes. So
it was so good.
So I ended up going, I can come on this date, so I can go dress up as a Jedi and sit in a Darth Maul inflatable chair while I'm waiting to get into the theater. So it was great. It was an awesome experience. The guys in the bullpen were amazing. They were amazing mentors. The editors that were there, Tom DeFalco was there. He's the one that I remember the most, and his assistant editor his name was Smitty, and I remember him as well, and they were just amazing guys. I mean, the whole editorial department was really great. Those guys I remember specifically probably more so, and I remember we got in an argument one day because the bullpen was this big open floor plan, and so we would have discussions and be like, Spider-Man was black and red, and they're all talking. I said, they said he was blue and red. And he was blue and red. I said, actually, he was black and red. And they're like, no, he wasn't. And they started making fun of me because I was the intern. And so Michael Golden was working there.
Shout out Michael Golden and his wife.
As I was there, he was working there. He comes out and goes, the kid's right. Spider-Man was black and red, not blue and red. And he goes, and it's exactly why I told you, because they used the blue for shadowing the black so that you could see the muscles and stuff. And Joe Quesada and Jimmy Palmiotti were there doing Marvel Nights. And this is another thing with my grandmother. This was awesome. So she had got me this book, and it was out of print at the time, and it's called Andrew Loomis, Figure Drawing for All It's Worth. All of you artists that are listening, I recommend, or all you artists that are here, I highly recommend that book. That book is amazing. I don't know an animator from Disney or anywhere else, or a comic book artist that either doesn't have that book or was looking for it. So at that time, there were no printed copies of the book because his wife had the rights, wouldn't let it be printed. My grandmother found me a copy. She tracked me a copy down. I had it sitting on my drafting table at Marvel this one day. Joe Quesada comes by and goes, he looks at it, and then he does a double take, and he goes, "Is that what I think it is?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Can I see it?" And he goes, "I've never seen one in person." I'm like, "Yeah." So he picks it up and looks at it, and yeah, it was pretty cool. So we had some cool times, definitely cool times.
You are an amazing human being.
Why do you say that? I'm not amazing. I'm just me.
I mean, that's some good. Is that not good stories, guys? Does he not have some good stories? Has he not met some cool people and done some cool things?
So Marvel was amazing. I didn't know Disney was buying them at the time, but now everything that I love is under one roof: Star Wars, Disney, Marvel. So it's all there. So yeah.
Chocolate cake
Chocolate cake.
with like cupcakes with the
Oh,
lava
my gosh.
that comes out of the.
So for those of you guys that don't know, I'm diabetic, and my wife, I feel, she has an extra life insurance policy out on me. So what she does is nonchalantly tries to kill me. I don't know, any of you that are diabetic out there may know this. So we go out to lunch, and first of all, where do we go for lunch? Popeyes, chicken. There's no carbs in any of that stuff. It does not raise your blood sugar at all. It's all carb free. After Popeyes, obviously she did not get enough digs in, so there's a cupcake shop that just opened, honey. We need to go there. They have the best cupcakes ever. Well, I have a sweet tooth, so we went to the cupcake shop, and she did not lie. When you come down, Kim, we're going for cupcakes. Okay, so best cupcakes ever. My numbers were in the 400s, but hey, it was a cupcake. It was good. I'm alive. We're okay. Her plan did not succeed yet, so.
Guys, we probably have time for one more question from somebody out there. If one of you guys would like to ask.
Yes.
Yes, please. This young lady's question, first part, because it looks like she may have a second part. Her first part was, do you have any recommendations for someone trying to get into animation?
Yes. First of all, first thing is, I am also the animation director for the Florida Film Academy. So I work professionally in the comic field, and I do animation. I'm the animation director for the Film Academy. As far as Disney criteria, I'm familiar with what they want. Not so much like computer-wise now, because I'm sure there's some of that that's involved, but they take from specific schools. Now, how old are you? 23? Did you go to school yet? Okay, where did you graduate from? Okay.
You're a TCU alumni? Hey, I'm Woo Pig Suey, but I get down with TCU.
Okay, so the first thing I would highly recommend is figure drawing. Definitely draw. The computer's a tool. So draw, become familiar with, find out what the companies are using for whichever animation studio you decide that you're interested in. Find out what software they're using, kind of familiarize yourself with that. But more importantly than that, a lot of it I feel depends on where you go to school. Disney goes to CalArts, DreamWorks, Nickelodeon, all these big animation studios go to the art colleges like CalArts, Columbus College of Art and Design, Ringling School of Art and Design in Sarasota, Florida, CTAD, Columbus College of Art and Design, that's in Columbus, Ohio, Savannah College of Art and Design down in Georgia. These are all colleges that I know for sure that Disney does do features and stuff at, like they go there looking for students, as well as many other animation companies, including Pixar as well. what makes an art college different than a normal college is this. As far as art goes, what happens is these campuses are specifically geared towards different styles of art. However, every student has to go through a foundation program that is rooted in the same foundations of art. You're learning color, you're learning design, you're learning anatomy, you're enhancing your drawing skills, you're doing different things like that. The problem with a regular college, and not to slam any college because there are colleges that have amazing animation programs and stuff out there, but they also have nursing programs and law programs. And so whereas an art college is able to funnel all of their resources specifically into art, a lot of these other colleges are broken up. They have to fund money into athletics. They're funding money into the nursing program or their law program and things like that. So I don't feel the focus is as strong in those colleges as far as the art colleges that severely focus on art and give you options to take different things. Like I teach, for those of you guys that are familiar with Gabe's Cave, you guys have probably seen some of Elle Mangin's work, who is, she's one of my students. Ooh. And the girl is 15. Well, she's 16 now. I'm sorry, she just had her birthday. She's very upset.
Happy sweet
she's
16.
She came to me wanting to learn how to do portraits, and the girl is relentless. She has actually been coloring a lot of the covers that have been coming out. And the reason is, why? Because I taught her color theory. She continued to study it. She comes in and colors the covers under my supervision and learns more and more and more every day. But when you go to an art college, that's their focus. It's like a needlepoint focus on what you want to do. And that's why they're churning out the quality of artists that they're churning out. Now, if you do have, if you did go to another school, there are places you can go to where if you go and look at Disney job openings, or I'm sure even Nickelodeon or DreamWorks or anyone like that, they'll have job openings to where you can go on their sites and things. And there are occasions to where art job openings come up, and you can go ahead and, you can go ahead and apply for those jobs and send in your resume and things like that, and your portfolio. If you're applying for anything art-wise, either a reel or a portfolio are going to be required. Okay?
Yes. For all of you guys out there that are listening, I challenge you to, before you leave, to go by Peter's booth and ask him to politely show you some of those pictures from his students that he teaches. These kids are amazing, and it gives you high hopes for what we have to look forward to out of the next generation of artists coming out of those schools.
Yep. It's humming. So, did anybody else have a question? Yes. I haven't heard rumors of a live-action Hunchback of Notre Dame. I have heard some rumblings about Atlantis. So possibly, hopefully, whether they're going to do that or not, I don't know, but hopefully we'll see something like that. Honestly, if you want the truth, I feel like a lot of the live actions, as fun as they are, I think they would be more fun with Muppets. I think you get a couple actors and some Muppets, and you go to town, you write a fun script. I want to see Miss Piggy as Rapunzel. I'm sorry, it's just the way it is. I feel that would be a good time. I feel that people love the Muppets. I know I love the Muppets. I have Muppet action figures displayed in my studio. So maybe I'm a little biased. If you guys haven't seen the new Muppet series on Disney Plus with Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem, highly recommend it. It will make your day just seeing Animal as a sushi chef. Okay, so it is worth the watch, I promise you. As far as live action goes, I think a lot of movies need to be looked at is how adaptable are they to live action? Was the animated feature enough? Was that something that, hey, this feature's done, it's fantastic, you know, I know they've done sequels, animated sequels to Aladdin, they've done animated sequels to even Snow White, or not Snow White, I'm sorry, Cinderella. But I would say, as far as live action goes, I haven't heard anything on Hunchback, so.
All right, guys. Thank you all so much for coming to Peter Smith's 100 Years of Disney Animation panel here at Cowtown. Come on, get loud.
See what I'm saying?
I see. I hope you guys had a great time. And thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It was great talking to you guys.
Yeah, y'all get by his booth. Make sure you ask him to show you that one time he had to draw Uncle Nasty on the cover of a comic.
I did draw Uncle Nasty on a cover. Definitely did.
Thank you, guys.
All
the
right,
next
guys.
panel is going to be DJV cosplay.
All right. Have a great